Hey, it's John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and it's The Entrepreneurial You, the show for dedicated and passionate Caribbean entrepreneurs seeking daily inspiration, brought to you by author, speaker, and award-winning entrepreneur Heneka Watkis-Porter. You must be prepared to ignite.
We needed to raise capital, but our experience with local financial institutions was that they were cautious and slow to act, and interest rates were far too high. We had real concerns about financing our business through outside equity investors and the possibility of interference. Could we get a fair valuation for our business? We had our own ideas about the business and its value. Should I go the traditional route of bank financing, or should I try the Jamaica Stock Exchange? So we made a call and experienced transformation of our business through conversations. I'm John Mahfood, CEO of Jamaican Teas, and we're listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Give us a call today at 876-967-3271 to begin your transformation through conversation. We want to see your company listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Coming up on this episode of The Entrepreneurial You.
It all starts with your type of incorporation, right? So if you want to get into business, you want to make sure you incorporate. That way you have an entity with some protections in terms of liability from yourself. You definitely could go out into the world and start your own business as an independent contractor and have everything flow through personally. There's nothing wrong with that. However, the first thing you want to do is actually incorporate. And the type of incorporation that you need depends on the type of business you want to run. Like here, I have a big investor pool. So therefore, I set up a C Corp, which is kind of like those companies that you see on Wall Street, where you sell stock to individuals and they buy into your company.
The difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion is the thickness of a prison wall. Dennis Healy. Hello and blessings to you, my peak performers. I trust that today is a great day for you, whatever time of day you're listening to this episode. Welcome. It's episode 142 of the Entrepreneurial You podcast. And you know, I am your host, Heneka Watkis-Porter. Today's episode is with Richard Lavina. Richard is the CEO and co-founder of consumer, small business and enterprise SaaS accounting tech company TaxFile, which was founded in 2015. Prior to this, Richard worked for PricewaterhouseCoopers as an auditor. So, of course, he has lots of accounting and auditing experience that he is now put into running his company, and he will be sharing with us. I'm really looking forward to our conversation on taxation and the entrepreneur, that dirty word. Welcome, Richard.
Hi, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Have you ever visited Jamaica?
I have not. No. Should I?
Ah, yes. Like that could be the 11th commandment, you know, thou shalt visit Jamaica.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What time of the year is the best? What time of the year should I go visit?
Well,
Summer?
I would say just about any time because we are a tropical island. We're experiencing a lot of rain now, but you know, usually we're very, very warm and tropical, and we were really enjoying the rains now because we were missing rain for a long time. It was extremely hot. Yeah.
You guys have a drought?
Yeah, we had, like, in the summer, it was extremely hot. Like, it was, migraine headache hot.
Crazy.
Yeah, you know? Anywho, so yes, please put it on your bucket list. And, as I said, it's the 11th commandment, okay?
Oh my God. Crazy. Okay.
All right.
I will. And before we get off Jamaica, any place in particular that you like the best?
Well, every touristy thingy to do is Dunsriver Falls and stuff, but I like the more rustic of, go into some hiking in the Blue Mountains and, off the beaten path, maybe Portland, which is more, a serenity's, haven. It's really serene and, so those would be my pick. But the traditional Dunsriver Fall and the, Montego Bay and stuff like that. But I'll say do the untraditional thing. Yeah.
I like that.
Yes.
That's why we're here. We're entrepreneurs doing the untraditional, taking the
absolutely
path less traveled.
The path less traveled, no pun intended, the unconventional. All right. So I have heard the saying, Richard, that there are two things in life that are certain, right? Death and taxation.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely no getting around taxes, right? So you have witnessed, and this is what I've gleaned from what I've read about you. You have witnessed firsthand and learned about the systematic inefficiencies of the accounting industry. And that was your springboard for starting your own business. Now, just unpack that a little and give us a little story there.
The industry has really been a last mover when it comes to innovation throughout the years. All right. You could go back to, when computers were first coming onto the screen, or the cloud, more recently, right, in the early 2000s. It seems like since it's a really risk averse industry, right? When you think about accountants, it's always the butt of a joke, right? Deborah in accounting or something, and usually the joke ends with, her being, so boring that even she caught onto it, or the accountant's a penny pincher, right? And I think that kind of has translated into the way that the industry kind of operates, right? It's measuring twice, 3 times, 5 times before cutting, right? Before making decisions, before changing. And there's a lot that goes into that. I'm not going to say that all that is unwarranted. There definitely is value in having your accountant being the voice of reason, especially within businesses, internal accounting departments, right? Or as as your CPA, as a person you rely upon, because, they need to shoot the facts to you, right? And give you an accurate assessment as to where your business is, not just from a tax standpoint, but from an accounting standpoint. And obviously taking a more conservative approach is better, right? Than a more aggressive approach, right? Certainly some of that is warranted. However, over the years, what I've seen is that, there's tons of new technology, that have enabled the supply, the CPA base, the IRS enrolled agent base, to maybe gain access to new work and to work with different types of people, different types of small businesses, businesses that work out of WeWork or out of their homes. Okay. And service them with big firm type quality, but with lower rates. So what I'm alluding to here is obviously tax file. Over the years, let's say whether it's the movement to the cloud, you always see the accounting industry be last to move. They have to get over the issues on, okay, well, if we go to the cloud and my clients, what if they sue me, or my servers I don't own anymore, my servers are now owned by Amazon, right? Yada, yada, yada. Well, in this case here, it's a different type of innovation where we're actually improving the quality of work, right, that you have access to now, because we're lowering kind of the price point. We're increasing the exposure that small businesses and individuals could get to a CPA with 15 years experience that's usually, historically hidden behind, the walls of a traditional kind of CPA firm, right? So mainly the problems that I've, kind of realized is in the 21st century, we have a lot more entrepreneurs, we have a lot more independent contractors, right? We have a lot more complex tax needs that I'm sure we'll get into, right, in terms of filing taxes for your businesses and, personally. And these people aren't on traditional C Corp type budgets. They're on much smaller budgets, but with the same type of accounting needs. So how can we service them better? And what can we do to provide them with higher quality of talent?
So those inefficiencies, of course, led you into, among other things, of course, you developed your idea. It was from an idea. Now it's a venture-backed company serving tens of thousands of taxpayers, right? How did you move from just the idea into getting to that level of success? Let me hear a little bit about that before we get into some nitty-gritty of, taxation and the technicalities of that.
Yeah. So entrepreneurs come about, obviously, as you mentioned, I'm episode 100 something here on your podcast, right? So I would say that every single one of those founders that you've had on became a founder and started their own business because they want to solve a problem that the market wasn't taking care of, right? Regardless of what that problem is. And here specifically at TaxFile, it was the access, like I said, the access to new work, okay? From my standpoint, it was from the accountant standpoint saying, man, I'm here working at this firm, but I could be doing so much more with my license, with my CPA license. I could be out driving business, and servicing people broadly. But there was no platform out there to bring in business from all 50 states. It was very traditional. It's kind of like, okay, you have a CPA firm located in Miami, Florida or New York. And generally the business that you're going to see are from those geographical regions. So I was kind of handicapped, as a CPA in terms of the access to the different clientele base that I could service, right? There's a whole world out there. We have amazing technology. It was right around the time that Uber popped up. Why can't we build out a similar platform here where you could get access to a broader network of clients? And that was the main problem that I was trying to solve, and ended up solving a lot of other problems like fixed pricing. So a lot of firms have variable pricing. Like our lawyer, they say, oh, it's $50 an hour. So great. Well, how much is that going to cost me? So all these problems that you're going about solving obviously make up the script for when you go out to get funding, right? Because the first thing a VC is going to ask you is, what problems are you solving and who else is solving these problems? So as I mentioned earlier, you're an entrepreneur because you think you can solve a problem better than someone else. Because if you are, then your customers are going to flock to you. And you fundamentally can't get away from that or bifurcate that away from your funding. Okay. So in 2015, when we first started out, we bootstrapped with local investors, our funding. Eventually we became VC backed. We're a growth stage company now. We have millions of dollars in revenue, and getting from point A, to where we are right now, is a process, right? And you take many turns. So putting the team together, obviously you can't do without some type of funding, right? However, that initial team that you do put together has to be without funding. What I'm seeing more and more in the market now is that you got to go out and build a product. You got to service some clients before you could get funding, right? Back in 2007, maybe it was kind of like, it was different. You could go and raise some money on an idea, right? But it's getting harder and harder, especially outside of the Valley and outside of main hubs where, people or VC firms are willing to take on slightly more risk just because you're local, right? But let's say you're like me, based out of Miami, you have to be that much better than all the companies that these guys see in their regions, right? So how are you going to be that much better? Well, if you're first starting off, build a product that's solving a legitimate problem. What is your total tangible addressable market? How big is that? The bigger that is, the more potential you have to grow, right? If your market's only a couple $1 million, well, you have to perform perfectly to capture that entire market to make a couple $1 million. Maybe not that exciting for someone that's looking to create a company that eventually could create a few $1 billion in wealth, right? So all these things kind of go into place. And then, well, what type of product are you building? Because once you do build it, and you get that funding, that's going to determine the team that you put together. So here at TaxFile, we need a team of not just engineers, but of CPAs. Right. We're servicing, the public with an accounting product. We need competent CPAs here on site to be able to sort through those issues and serve them from a customer service standpoint. You also need operational people, right, to help you on the day-to-day stuff. As that becomes more of a burden, you need to be out there growing your business and not worrying about the day-to-day admin stuff.
Good. So we now have a sense of, what it entails. I'm sure my people farmers, they're listening weekly, and so they have an idea, and they're entrepreneurs themselves. Some of them are entrepreneurs, some of them wanted to become entrepreneurs. But it's always good, I believe, to share the experience of, different persons, so we kind of get a deeper appreciation of what it means in various industries that I feature my guests across from. So here we move from that idea into the journey that you've had, a little bit of what it entailed. And now we want to hit directly home, which is about taxation, right? The real essence of why we're even having this conversation. Why is it important to pay taxes?
Basically, you pay taxes because you need the government to support you with all the infrastructure that you have to function on a day-by-day basis, right? That's evolved obviously over time, right? The tax code. I have a book while we're talking here. I actually have a book here that's titled U.S. Federal Tax Code History, 1861 through 1871. It was a gift from one of my employees here. This tax code is a lot smaller than the tax code that we currently have in place. And the services of the government back then were completely different than the services of the government now.
Mm-hmm. So, because when we say this, and clearly it's assumed and implied, but when we say it, it kind of helped to erode that negative mindset that is associated and is surrounding taxation, because like I mentioned in the intro earlier, that it seems to be a dirty word. Now, help us to understand taxation for entrepreneurs, because I know that in various territories the rules and regulations are different, but there are certain basic principles and standards that obtains. So an entrepreneur who is just about to launch a business has no idea the first thing to do regarding taxation. All the entrepreneur wants to do, all she wants to do is simply make her product, go sell it, make some money. Talk to us about taxation. Talk to that particular entrepreneur about taxation.
Sure. It all starts with your type of incorporation, right? So if you want to get into business, you want to make sure you incorporate. That way you have an entity with some protections in terms of liability from yourself, right? You definitely could go out into the world and start your own business as an independent contractor and have everything flow through personally. There's nothing wrong with that. However, the first thing you want to do is actually incorporate. And the type of incorporation that you need, well, depends on the type of business you want to run, right? So like here, I have a big investor pool. So therefore, I set up a C Corp, which is kind of like those companies that you see on Wall Street, where you sell stock to individuals and they buy into your company, okay? That entity is separately taxed, meaning that business pays a tax on top of the tax that I pay personally. 80% of the business or 90% of the businesses in the United States are flow-through entities, which means I'm a small business. I'm going to go out and operate and perform my service, whether it's a hair salon or it's an accounting firm or a law firm, right? All those different types of entities are usually flow-through entities known as S Corps, okay, or partnerships. And you will need to incorporate to create a business as that flow-through entity. However, you're only taxed once. The entity itself doesn't pay a separate tax. That's why it's called flow-through. All that distributions comes onto your personal tax return, right? But there still are some benefits in terms of liability and business deductions that you could take to lower your tax, your taxable rate.
Someone who is not interested in forming a limited liability company, for example, or perhaps even a partnership, and they want to remain a sole proprietor for a while, or perhaps until their business expands a little more. So give a comparison with how is the approach in the United States, for example, with a sole proprietor vis-a-vis a limited liability company.
Sure. So for 2018 through 2025, which is the new tax code that we have, okay, let's say your business is making, $70,000, okay? Your tax rate personally, if you don't have a flow through, is going to be 22%, okay? Historically, before the tax code change, that was at 25%. So actually you save a little bit of money if you're making $70,000 through that entity, right? However, if you have a flow through entity, okay, you could qualify for additional deductions. Like for example, there's a 20% standard deduction on qualified income. Obviously, you need a CPA to kind of determine what type of your income qualifies, right? And that varies business to business. But that's an additional benefit that you would get if you were to incorporate as an S Corp, okay? To see what type of income will qualify for this additional 20% that's part of the new tax code, right? So right off the bat, without even diving into this beyond a couple of sentences, there are additional benefits to just incorporating from day one, okay? Regardless of how big your business is, because at the end of the day, you might be able to save some additional dollars. You could take stuff like, for example, you could deduct the cost of depreciation, right? So let's say you buy a laptop. That's an asset, right? Everyone has to work, especially nowadays, online. You could take that if you're incorporated. It's a depreciable asset. And you could take the entire benefit up front as opposed to just taking a piece of it every single year. These are the little nuances, right, that add up at the end of the day. Sure, I can totally understand. I don't know if, you don't know if you're going to be doing this full time. You don't know how big it's going to get. But if you're going to go out and venture, you might as well have a separate legal entity there to protect you from, someone suing you. So, right, who's to say that your first customer that you get is the first person that sues you? That's not nice to say, but that's a reality, right? So you want to make sure that you at least have that protected, and then take advantage of some of the tax deductions that you get from operating a business, a separately incorporated business.
Mm-hmm. All right. So someone in the U.S. and my entrepreneur listening in the U.S. and, is thinking, you know what? I need to call a company like TaxFile to help me sort all this through, because I'm hearing you, but it's just going right over my head. What does TaxFile do? How do you help? Just take us through that. Tell us through what does TaxFile do, how you help with, help entrepreneurs with their taxation process, and, where you come in.
Yeah. So this stuff's pretty complicated. The tax code's pretty large. And if you're a sole proprietor, you should just be focused on growing your business, period. Getting more customers, operating, right? The last thing you want is to be reading or researching tax code. So therefore you could go and file your taxes and tax plan yourself, right? There's luckily an industry, here in the States, that licenses CPAs and IRS enrolled agents that do this for a living. So they know exactly how to optimize your tax planning. They work with you on our platform. Okay, so just like Uber for taxes, you download the TaxFile app. You'll see their catalog of services, kind of like with Amazon. You can place it in your cart, in order for tax planning or for income tax preparation. Then you get a fixed price up front. So for a couple $100, you'll get instantly. It takes only 90 seconds to connect with a pro, and there's no haggling back and forth or anything like that. You can place an order for that incorporation that you're looking for with some type of tax planning. So that you're not at the end of the year going to be paying a penalty to the IRS or anything like that. You'll have a CPA connect with you within 90 seconds. Okay. And they'll work for you, take all that work off your plate, and make sure that you're okay from a tax standpoint, and that you're accomplishing whatever you need to accomplish this calendar year to make sure that you're compliant.
Mm-hmm. And what territory is it? Just the U.S. that you have clients that you work with, or you expand beyond the U.S.?
So right now we're operating in Australia and the U.S. It's limited in Australia. So our tax services and our incorporation services are only in the 50 states right now, and Puerto Rico. So 50 states plus Puerto Rico.
Sounds really good. And Richard, you actually, throughout our conversation, have reminded us the importance of why it is that we pay taxes and why it is that we need to have our taxes sorted through and even have a professional deal with it. Now, at this point in our conversation, Richard, I'm going to ask you to, one, share your contact details with us so that persons may further reach out to you after we've ended. And two, just to kind of give your final thoughts, share with us what I may have missed in asking you that perhaps you think is important to share.
Yeah, so you could reach out. There's a help chat on our website on www.taxfile.com. All our information is on there. You could chat with us. You could get more information if you need help setting up a business. We just want to make sure that you get the help that you need, right? We don't like people starting businesses and then paying penalties and back payments to the IRS, right? And the way you avoid that is by getting off on the right foot, right? So when you go into business, just make sure that you get the right help, right? You're not in this alone. It's not incredibly expensive either. There's cost-effective ways to get the right help to actually save you a bigger headache down the line, and to make sure everything is completely compliant if you're operating within the U.S. And you could visit us at taxfile.com to get a little bit more of that information. We have a tax deadline coming up here in the U.S. If you do operate in the U.S., October 15th. That's the last day that you have to file, if you did file an extension, your personal tax return. And then after October 15th, the 2019 tax season kind of starts. So at the end of the year, come December 31st, you should be checking in to make sure that you're up to speed on any changes. We don't expect any significant changes, but there's always slight changes in the tax code. You should be closing out your books and making sure that those books are sent to, an accountant that could help you come January, pay the appropriate amount of taxes to the authorities. So.
Richard Lavina, thank you so much for spending time with me and my audience today. I certainly do appreciate you and appreciate your time.
I appreciate you, and I'll make sure to go off the beaten path when I visit Jamaica and do all the sites that you told me to go visit.
Yes, and let me know when you're coming.
More rustic with Jamaica.
Yes.
More rustic, right?
Yes. And thank you, my community, for tuning in to this episode with Richard Lavina. I look forward to connecting with you next week. In the meantime, I'm inviting you to join a very select group, mastermind group, to create a strategic advantage to drive business, to improve your personal life, and have professional and business breakthrough. This mastermind will definitely move you from stuck to unstuck, and who doesn't want to get unstuck, right? We need to move on, move forward, level up. To be part of this select group, visit Watkis-Porter.com and just send me a WhatsApp message letting me know that you are interested in being part of this mastermind group. Remember, you were born to win, but to be a winner, you must plan to win, prepare to win, and expect to win. What good? That's it, Richard. That's it. Thank you so much.